Welcome to QAV episode 816, the 22nd of April. Back from Easter break, long weekend, market's back, crashed first thing this morning and then recovered. I think it's kind of back to where it was when it opened, but it's been it's kind of been a nothing week, really, on the market, Tony. The markets have been not doing too well, particularly in the US. Here, it's been kind of coasting along. But just more stories everywhere. Like, I can't find anything else in the financial media, really, apart from just, hold on, everything's going down.
Yeah.
Don't save the women and children first. Save the rich white men first, and women and children later if we've got time. The All Ords over the last week is actually up, surprisingly. The Dow Jones, not so much. The S&P 500, no, they're both down. Bitcoin is up. Apple is down. Google is down. Meta is way down. Microsoft's way down. Nvidia, Tesla, the Mag 7 are all way down in the last week, but the All Ords is up. What do you make of that, TK?
Australia's the best place in the world, Cam. That's what I make of it. We just
I think it's because Dutton's polling numbers have fallen down, and everyone's celebrating that. Dutton's whole thing about be a Trump light probably was badly timed.
no, he's been walking away from that, hasn't he? Didn't Jacinta, I forget now her name, Jacinta Price, yeah, came out and say make Australia great again, and they had to run for cover after she said it.
Oh, dear me. Yeah. So no, seriously, why do you think that our market's up when the US has been tumbling?
Yeah, it's a good question. Got to say that we're still like we were. Our commodities mainly go to China, not to the US. We're not a big exporter to the US. We're a net importer from the US, so tariffs are an issue. They're not going to be a huge deal for us.
Not a big issue for us directly, but indirectly, it's probably going to be a big issue for us, as I understand it.
Well, yeah, if America goes into recession, and there are some people saying it's already there, then I expect that we'll catch the cold when America sneezes as well.
And if China's exports to the US drop as a result of the tariffs, then China doesn't have as much money to buy stuff from us, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Trickle-down effects, yeah.
Yeah, but our market's down, getting up close to 10% on the basis of that news. I think the American market's down. I sent you a link to a story about it that came out from Bloomberg today, saying that the market was off 2.5% in the US overnight, and admittedly on light volume because it's Easter Monday over there when the market was trading. But the market was down 2.5% because Trump was supposedly asking around to see how he could sack Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed.
J-Pow, as they call him.
J-Pow?
Hey,
no, too late. Trump wants to sack him, or is trying to work out how to sack him, because I think it's pretty hard to do to sack a central bank governor. That's thrown the market into a tiz because there's not many things universally agreed to by economists, but one of them is that central banks should be independent. And, that's a lesson learned the hard way in a lot of countries in Africa when they let the government print money. Because that's the thing, like we had economists on our show back in COVID, and we talked about MMT, and we talked about the magic fairy dust that the RBA could sprinkle on the printing presses to magic paper money out of thin air. And that's the problem with the central bank, is if you let the government of the day run it, then they can just go into an election campaign, printing money like there's no tomorrow and handing it out. And that just leads to hyperinflation, which has been the case whenever it's happened.
And as I recall, with the MMT conversation, there were going to be no negative side effects of it whatsoever.
Yeah, correct. Except for the, whatever it was, $120 billion sitting on the RBA's balance sheet as a loss since they did it during COVID. Yeah. Which the government has to fund, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, no, well, that's the thing. And and that's exactly what's going to happen if Trump can sack Powell and take over the control of the Fed in the US, the central bank, and they start printing money because he wants interest rates to come down. then inflation will take off. It'll become hyperinflation. The currency will devalue.
He wants to be the head of the Kennedy Center and the head of the Fed, as well as
Ooh.
president and commander-in-chief. He wants all. It's like Pokemon. He wants to collect all the titles, all the roles, have them all. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
So
So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight in the US. They're in quarterly reporting season. I think, as we talked about before, Tesla are reporting. It's not supposed to be pretty. Few questions lined up about why Elon is spending so much time in the government and not running Tesla. Yeah.
It doesn't matter though, really, at the end of the day. Like I'm sure his power is pretty entrenched in Tesla. He's like, he's going to have voting class shares like Rupert if he doesn't just have the majority of the voting stock. So I don't know that it's going to matter too much if the shareholders are unhappy. What are they going to do? Vote him out?
Well, I thought you were going to say
I think so.
It doesn't really matter if he comes back to run Tesla on, because I think that's probably the more apt take on Tesla. Is it better off without him or better off with him? Look at the US government, for God's sake.
Yeah. Well, maybe he'll just go in and fire everyone at Tesla. He's good at that. It's just firing people, apparently. What comes next? We'll worry about that later. Doesn't matter. I've got these Trump supporters, or Trump's chumps, as I call them now, telling me what a great job Elon's doing with Doge. I'm like, listen, anyone can fire people. It doesn't take any sort of genius to come in and fire people. Anyone can fire people. That's the easiest thing to do. We've seen this in corporate land for decades, right? You'll get a new CEO comes in, fire everyone, let go everyone. All of a sudden, the business falls apart and they have to hire everyone back again.
Yeah. Correct.
Usually.
Oftentimes as consultants at a higher price.
At a higher price. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, anyone can fire people. That's easy. And the analogy I've been using is when Stalin fired or gulagged or killed all of his generals in the late 1930s as part of the purge. Get rid of all the generals. We don't need the generals. Uh-oh, the Nazis invaded. Where are our generals? Well, you got rid of them all, sir. Oh, shit.
They've gone across to Germany.
Well, one did, but the rest were dead.
Valued.
Like, who could have seen that coming? Like, firing people and dismantling agencies. Like, I'm all for efficiency. Efficiency is great. But just arbitrarily firing 2/3 of your workforce and not thinking there aren't going to be consequences down the track is just ridiculous. But anyway, not my country.
And look, the sentiment's fine. I think any government can probably do with a bit of a dose of salt. They get fat and lazy like big book corporations do.
Yep.
But I've seen no evidence to say that Doge has trimmed the fat and not the muscle in the US.
Or
it's been fairly political too, I think.
Or has a plan for what we're cutting and why we're cutting it and how we're going to do better without that. It's just... And I like the fact it went from we're going to save $2 trillion a year to we're going to save $1 trillion a year to now it's down to $155 billion, I think. It's classic Musk reevaluation on the fly.
Reframe.
Anyway, back to the markets.
I've got a pulled pork to do on Tribune Resources.
Oh.
If I can do that now?
Yeah, do that now, but don't say anything bad because they're I just added them to the portfolio, I think, and
okay,
they're not far. Oh, they're okay. They're off their 3-point trend line. That's okay. Good. Off you go.
I won't say anything bad about them.
No,
it's pretty hard to find something bad to say about gold miners these days. They're the only bright spot in our portfolios. No points for guessing why gold's going up at the moment. We covered off on a lot of those reasons. But gold is having a very good run. It's having a very good day, as Richard Dreyfuss said in what's that movie? Let It Ride.
Okay.
Anyway, Tribune Resources, Perth-based gold miner. Only a small ADT, so I hesitated to talk about them. They're doing 38,000 per day on average ADT, so only help small portfolios. interesting thing about this company, Tribune, is it shares the same board as another company called RAND, code RND, which is at the bottom of our buy list as well. And it kind of hovers on and off it. So I got a QAV score of 0.1 today when I did it. So I did think I could perhaps combine the two if you were looking at buying into them. But the AVT for RAND is even smaller. It's only about 3,000 a day. So I couldn't bang them together to get to a decent ADT size. But this will suit some people. I guess a lot of the comments I'll make, generally is that if you like a company like Tribune, you may want to look at some of the companies which have been on the buy list but are now off the buy list, largely because their prices have run up dramatically. Companies like Evolution, Northern Star Resources, they're still good companies scoring well on the quality metric. It's just the price is going up as we speak. And in fact, I did my analysis this morning before the market opened at a price of, what have I used? $5.06, I think. $5.04. And last time I looked before we came on the show, it was $5.16. So Tribune Resources share price is going up as we speak, as is all of the gold miners, really. I don't own shares in this one, but I do own shares in other gold mining stocks, but I won't touch on those today. What can I say about RND? Sorry, about TBR. Yeah, thank you. It owns, or it actually participates, I guess is a better way of putting it, into three gold mining projects, at least two of which are JVs. The big one is one called East Kundana, which is outside of Kalgoorlie in Perth, a big gold mining area for decades in WA. It's in a JV with RAND Mining. Together with Tribune, they have the miner share of the JV, about 49%. The company that owns 51% is Northern Star, which we've just spoken about. Also, apart from having the same boards, Tribune owns 47% of RAND, so they do have cross-ownership there, which is one of the features of talking about this company. Seems like the principles have been around for a long time in the Perth mining scene, and there's a lot of legacy cross-ownership going on between various companies. Evolution owns a share of Tribune. Tribune owns a share of RAND. Northern Star owns 5% of R&D. So there's a lot of cross-ownership there. Some of it historically has been attempts to take over Tribune, which has been rebuffed in the past. Cross-ownerships in between Tribune and RAND I don't know if it's a case, but it is a defensive tactic, which is often used by companies to make it harder to take over one or the other because they own big slabs in each other. So you've got to take out both. Anyway, they own the money-making machine for them is East Kundana. Quoting from their website, Tribune is a participant in the East Kundana joint venture, which is 51% owned by Gilt Edge Mining, with Gilt Edge Mining now wholly owned by Northern Star Resources. Tribune and RAND share has remained constant over the life of the EKJV, that's the East Kundana JV. Ownership of GEM has passed through various mining companies, including Goldfields, Orion, Placer-Dome, Barrick, with Northern Star Resources assuming control of GEM and operational management of EKJV in 2014. The EKJV is presently an operational underground gold mining project located in the Kundana area, 25 kilometres west-northwest of Kalgoorlie and 47 kilometres northeast of Kilgardley in the eastern goldfields of Western Australia. The project comprises two producing underground mines. Raleigh is one of them, and the Rubicon/Hornet/Pegasus mine is the other. Prospecting and small-scale mining in the Kundana area commenced circa 1895. Modern mining commenced in 1988 with the development of several open pits in the area. Tribune Resources and its sister company RAND Mining held leases in the district from the early 1980s and formed an exploration joint venture with GEM in 1997. Exploration success saw the creation of an EKJV production joint venture agreement in 2002 to conduct development and mining of the resources in the area of the lease. Mineralization occurred in 1999. The project continued. Other mines were discovered in the area in 2000. Open pit mining of Rubicon and Raleigh commenced in 2002 and was completed in 2004. Raleigh underground mining commenced in 2006 and at Rubicon Hornet in 2011 and is ongoing. So basically, this company was a gold prospector going back 30 or 40 years, struck a good mine, productionized it, went into a JV to do that, and has been producing gold from there. They've now gone out and looked for gold in a couple of other areas overseas, and there are other two projects. One's called Japa, Japa, and the Japa Gold Project is located in the western region of Ghana. So I've talked about Ghana before as being a gold prospect, gold mining area for other listed Australian gold miners. And it's near a fairly well-known gold area called Ashanti, or the Ashanti Belt, and people would have heard of the Ashanti Gold Mine Company if they followed gold mining in Australia for a while. Didn't look like that was in production from what I could tell. And then their other region of exploration is called Diwalal, if I pronounce that right. Diwalal, Diwalwal, and that's in Mindanao in the Philippines. And again, a joint venture which they have 40% interest in. And looks like what they've done there is to take over and to open up again what's called the Victory Tunnel. So a tunnel into a mine. They're getting that working again slowly, and they haven't, as far as I can tell, started production from there, but they may well in the future as they keep exploring and making that Victory Tunnel come back onto production again. So that's basically them. The jewel in the mine is obviously this JV they have going in Kalgoorlie. It's possible that they might strike it lucky again in Ghana and the Philippines and reproduce what they've got in Kalgoorlie. That hasn't happened yet, but they've certainly got a lot of prospects in those areas, I'll call them. A couple of other things to talk about with Tribune. It's buying back up to 10% of its shares on market this year, so that's something that we like to see. The financial results were very good. So revenue was up 44% from the first half of 2024. Income was up 73%. Profit was up 21%. Earnings per share in the last half was 36%, up from 21% in the first half. I think it's fair to say that it's possible that what this company is doing is sitting on a lot of gold resources in Kalgoorlie and then selling them into the market to cover their costs, basically, while they keep exploring. I might be being a little bit disingenuous to them, but that's kind of how I read this, because if you look at their numbers, even though profit was up, their PE ratio is quite high, so their earnings aren't great, even though their prop cap is 5 point something. So I'll go through the numbers in a minute. Basically, the sort of picture I'm painting is that they have lots of resources, and then they mine them and sell them as needed to cover costs, and they keep looking for more is kind of how I see this company, which is not a bad business model. And certainly, if you're trickling gold into a market as the gold price increases, it's a good time to be doing that.
Yeah.
One thing I saw when I was doing research, and I could only see it at one place, and the website was called Investor Insight, and it wasn't in any of their ASX announcements, which I found interesting. But there was a headline which reads, Tribune Resources and Ram Mining to sue Northern Star Resources, dated 23rd of December last year. And in a nutshell, it looks like Northern Star controls the processing of the ore that comes out of the JV in Kalgoorlie. and Tribune wasn't happy with the processing, either the priority of processing the gold, or that they were getting their share of the control of the processing, I guess, the order in which it was done. But anyway, that was the headline. I couldn't find anything else about it, so it's quite possible that they, lobbed the suit and it was settled straight away. But the context of all of this is that Northern Star tried to buy them out a few years ago, couldn't, was rebuffed, and they're kind of all existing in, kind of trouble in paradise sort of relationships. They're making lots of money. They've got people on their registers. There's cross ownerships. There might be a bit of argy-bargy going on in the JV that's not coming out. Anyway, that's all by the by. I think that's probably the history of a company like this, where you're always entering into JVs and you're, pegging new tenements and discovering things and looking for partners, et cetera, et cetera. The company has an owner-founder, and he's been doing this for 30 years, so he certainly is part of the landscape and knows what he's doing in the Perth mining scene. So that's a tick, I think. If I go through the numbers, they're all very good. This company doesn't have a consensus target, so little broker coverage. I think probably the reason for that is the low ADT. Even though the market caps, if you put these two companies together, is getting up around $400 million, you're not getting a large ADT because of all the people sitting on the register, either the owner-founder or the cross-holdings or the failed takeover attempts or the JV partners, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something to bear in mind. I guess, it's possible that there's going to be more corporate action with this company. I suspect that they have their price, and if the gold price keeps rising and it becomes attractive enough to start another takeover offer, they might eventually countenance one. But at the moment, they're making lots of numbers, lots of good profit. Their numbers are good. If I go through the QAV numbers, IV1 is only 42 cents because they have a small earnings per share. There's no IV2 because we don't have a forecast earnings per share from the brokerage community. What we do have is net equity per share, which is $5.46. So share price this morning was $5.04. It's now up around $5.16. But either way, we're buying it for less than book value, and certainly less than book plus 30%. So that kind of backs up what I'm saying. This company has lots of resources, and I think is probably selling gold as it needs to cover its costs, and therefore not making a lot of money. Yield, they pay a 20-cent per share dividend. Yield is up around 4%. Nice, but not scoring high enough for us. Stock Doctor financial health is strong, and the trend is steady. Stockopedia quality ranking is 99 out of 100, which is very good. The F score is 8 out of 9, again, very good. And the overall ranking is 95. So it's up there in terms of Stockopedia's ranking. As I said before, not making much at the earnings per share line. PE is high, but not the highest. So it's certainly been higher in the past, but currently sitting at around 61 times. So very high PE ratio. Again, I think it's because they're sitting on assets and only selling them when they need to cover their costs. Prop cap, however, for this company is only 5.6 times, which is why we put it on our buy list, because we can buy it with strong cash flows. Directors hold 33% of stock, primarily through a chap by the name of Anthony Billis, sometimes known as Anton Billis. Owner founder with more than 30 years in the industry, both with Rand and with Tribune. Tribune, in terms of manually entered data, doesn't have consistently increasing equity, but a lot of the other metrics look good. Overall, the quality score from a QAV perspective is 85%, 11 out of 13, so kind of mirroring what Stockopedia says and Stock Doctor. And the QAV score is 0.15, so it's kind of in the middle of our buy list, but not doing too bad. Most of the other gold miners on the buy list have left because of price increases. Tribune is just starting to get there. Rand, its sister company with the same board, is just below its buy price when I had a look on the bread later today when I was doing research. So that will be coming into a buy. But again, there's very little ADT for Rand. To assess its risks and opportunities, obviously the gold price is having a huge upturn at the moment. That's got to be a tailwind for us. They are operating overseas for two of their major projects. So there's sovereign risk, which we've heard about before with government regime changes in Africa in particular. There's also JV risk, whether or not they sued Northern Star over the processing of their ore and whether they're getting a fair share. There's got to be a risk in not being the major partner over their ore producing asset. But they've had many decades to manage those risks, so they're good at it. Possible tailwind is the possibility of another takeover offer. And a negative is, even combined with R&D, this is a very low ADT stock, so it's not going to suit major portfolios that some of our listeners have. But if you have a small portfolio, have a look. It's certainly getting to the stage now where we're not seeing many gold miners on our buy list that we have in the past, or as many that we have in the past. And so if you want to sort of jump on the bandwagon, this might be one of your last chances from a QAV perspective. Anyway, I guess the other point to make is that if you do want to get into gold and you haven't bought the ones that were on our buy list in the past, you may still want to have a look at their quality. It's generally just the gold price which is stopping them from being on our buy list from a PropCAF point of view. But, if you wanted to participate in the sort of one area of the share market which is going up at the moment, you can still look at some of those companies like Northern Star and Evolution, which have dropped off our buy list but still have good quality scores, and their share and sentiment's still very strong for them. But that's Tribune. What's a Tribune, Cam? Is it a Roman soldier of some kind? You're the history expert.
A tribune was a representative of, could be the army, could be the people, quite often the tribune of the plebs. So you would have elections for the person that was going to be your representative to the Senate or to whatever the body was. Yeah, there'd be a tribune out it could be in the army, they could be to the Senate. And it was a protected role. So you basically were allowed to present the opinion of the body that you represented, and you couldn't be killed, supposedly, in theory, for it. You were a protected species. Of course, a lot of them got killed, but,
Yeah.
in theory, they were supposedly, the voice of a body.
I know obvious reason why you named a gold mining company after a tribune.
Yeah, hopefully it is the voice of the shareholders. I don't know why.
I don't know. Just like there's no reason why you wouldn't call your gold mining company Tribune Resources. I just thought there might have been some kind of link to gold somehow, but it doesn't sound like it.
Unless there's another definition of the word that has got nothing to do with ancient Rome. But
oftentimes you'd see newspapers were called the Tribune as well. Various functions.
Yeah, the voice.
In America
well, it's the voice of the people.
The voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.